Hey guys, happy Labor Day. Sorry if I'm coughing in the mic or anything. I'm not feeling the best, but I got a little sore throat. It's kind of cutting in and out. Uh, listen, I got a question over the weekend about, um, let's see here, support and resistance and zones versus lines. When would you use a zone rather than a line? That type of thing. And I answered back and had a couple different little chart markups, and kind of explained that when I was first starting to trade, I had lines everywhere and it just was confusing and overwhelming. And one thing I've learned over the past 2, 3 years is just to really simplify trading. You won't really see many indicators on my charts, if at all. Lately, I don't even remember the last time I looked at any kind of indicators. And the reason is I just want to simplify this thing. I mean, trading is hard enough. The technical analysis is basic. It's basic drawing lines, connecting the dots. It's basic, it's simple, it's easy with practice. But where people run into trouble is kind of the psychology side of it. That's a whole nother issue. But they just get into almost this analysis paralysis. They got too many things on their chart. They got indicators telling them to go short, and then another indicator telling them to go long, and it's just confusing as hell. And people just get paralyzed. They don't know what to do. They don't know which one to go by. And if you ever find yourself getting like that, just seriously, just delete everything off your chart and start fresh. Clean, naked chart. Get naked. We're born naked, right? So trade naked. So anyways, let's get into it. This trade here, potentially, if it may set up, it seems like a pretty probable trade setup for me in my trading style. I don't know if I'm supposed to do any kind of disclaimer, but this is just for education only. I'm not any kind of financial planner or advisor or anything. So, all right, let's look at it here. GJ 4-hour chart. When I first started, I would start marking, obvious support and resistance levels up, and I would literally just go nuts. Every little sharp point or stall or anything, I would put a line. Had to have a line. I got to be prepared, right? If price hits there, I gotta know. I gotta have a line there, and that gets ugly quick, right? So delete them. Where's the most probable trade setup gonna be? And that's what you have to identify, and that's kind of what I do with these zones that you may or may not see on my chart. Every chart has a zone. It may not be outlined with a rectangle or whatnot, but so where's our high? Where's our low? That's our large zone, right? I'm going to take a trade somewhere in this zone, right? That's easy enough to say. That's several thousand pips, right? Or a couple thousand. I don't know. What's that? 148 to 1200, 1300 pips or something like that. So I need to start narrowing down that zone. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to look for a little bit more obvious support and resistance, or use Fibonacci. One of the first things I do is, if I see a high and a low, then I'll draw a fib. I use 3 different fib levels. that I take into consideration when I get any kind of retracements, and that's the 50, the 61.8, and the 78.6. You know, so boom, I have a zone marked off. I may be taking a trade. If price gets up into this zone between these fib levels. I don't know which one it's going to be. I need to narrow it down a little bit more. And then I need to reanalyze as new market structures printed. So let's look here. What else do I use? I use trend lines. Do I see any trend lines? Well, I got a pretty major trend line that was recently broken. Like that. We kind of almost, depending on how you draw it, and this is another thing that's super subjective. You know, you may have retested it on Friday or whatnot. I don't know how people draw their trend lines, but you draw it like that. It was tested on Friday twice. I don't know if this first test was on Friday or not, but I know I was watching this sucker as it was tagging it on Friday. But for me, that's not in my fib zone. Will price jump up here to my fib zones? It may. Will price tank from here and go to where I want it to, which, you know, maybe down here, or at least to retest these lows? It may. You know, I won't be involved in it unless I can find, you know, a better entry. I'm not going to just sell it right now because it touched this trend line. I'd be chasing it. Back to the trend line I'm watching, which is this kind of more major, all-encompassing trend line, I guess. You got your anchor point, your initiation point, this third test. Go check out my YouTube videos over this. I took this trade back in June, I believe it was, and just traded this sucker for over 1,000 pips I collected across, I don't know, 3 or 4 different trades along the way. Go see how I did that. But anyways, back to our zone. Well, I see an impulsive move here. You know, we got our high, obvious high, we got our obvious low, but this impulsive move here really kind of initiated this sell-off here. So let's fib that, see if we can kind of narrow our zone down even more. Well, we smacked into the 50 on Friday, so that may be it for this trade, but who knows? If we can get up and test some of these other levels, that may kind of give us a little bit more opportunity. We got a little bit more narrow fib range up around here. That lines up with some really nice previous structure, right? We got, you know, if you want to draw some lines in, right around this 61.8, see if I can kind of fatten this up a little bit. You know what? Let me do this. Take off all the unnecessary stuff and just have what we want to see. What level is that? Okay. So if you really want to draw a line, there's your line. You know, this, you know, you could kind of even maybe on the 4-hour chart, you can kind of narrow it down even more if you want. Just like that. That's your support and resistance zone. At least for me, that's my support and resistance zone. I like that a lot, you know, maybe kind of fatten it up a little bit. So that's kind of, you know, if price trickles around here, does kind of, you know, let me bring up my little thing here. You know, maybe kind of does something like that. Boom, spike up there. I want to short that. But if we start putting in all kinds of extra structure levels, it starts making its way up. I may not necessarily want to short right there because I have, you know, still my main trend line that has yet to be tested. So that's where the reanalysis part comes in. It's not just a limit order right there. You can do that. People do that. That's how people trade. That's not how I trade though. I like to always constantly be reevaluating as prices make a new structure. You know, some people may, you bring in our little thing, they may put a limit order right there and have their stop up there. That's a 400 pip stop. If you're looking at 1-to-1, you know, target the lows, that lines up pretty nicely at the lows. That may be their style, where they just set and forget it, and that's where they're entering. Whether price spikes up there at this, you know, intersecting point or not, I don't know if that's going to happen. Chances are it won't, you know, but as it stands, that's a beautiful place to enter. You have all kinds of intersecting things right there. You got a 261.8 fib retracements right there. You know, if you kind of have that level marked off there, we'll just delete this here. You got 261.8 fib retracements right around there. You got a you know, a line, if that's what you want to trade off of. You got a, you know, a place where it became resistance, and then resistance was broken, and then it came support. Hasn't been retested since this past break, so, you know, there's your line if that's what you want, or your zone if you want to make it a larger zone. You know, it's just all personal preference. So I don't know what else to really kind of go in. If price kind of retraces back down, we can maybe look for if buyers step in here from this point, or if it spikes back down a little bit more into kind of some lower structure here. We got some lower little structure. We got a spot here and a spot here. If price spikes back down, that looks to be about a 50% retracement of this. If you call this your low and this your high, you know, and we bring in that 50 right there, you know, that's at a pretty good turning point. That may be the move that might get a quick, let's see here, something like this would be beautiful. Spike down to that 50 and then spike up right to there and then tank, right? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That would be beautiful if it did, but who knows? You know, this is kind of the planning that, you know, I do and go into. I can tell you one thing, you know, I have all this confluence here. I don't need, you know, a 400 pip stop. Yeah, if you're swinging, if you're setting and forgetting, and you're doing limit orders, that may be in your plan or whatever. But I know this is where my confluent entry is. If price gets above that, starts getting back up into this structure, I'm not going to be correct in my analysis, because this point here, this general area, as price is making its way up here, if it does, that's where my trade is. And if price gets above, you know, this, back up into this structure, starts breaking above all those other levels, those fib levels, I need to reevaluate that. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I did something, looked at something wrong, I don't know. But I need to reevaluate that. So maybe this is prices wanting to go up and test this potential trend line. You know, so these are all questions you have to ask yourself. These are all things you have to kind of personalize for yourself. If this helped out, let me know. If not, let me know. I can try and help out. But take care.